Average day starts with a series of calls, reports from various members of my team, finance team, legal team, actuary, benefits, labor, or press calls. Any of a number of different press outlets. That starts usually 7:30, 8. Go to the office, usually 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, somewhere in there. Followed up by a number of meetings, more calls. I'll try to look over, I get a daily cash report, state of the city, daily cash pack is what we call it. A revenue line, payments going out, I'll look over the daily cash pack, and it tracks it on 2-week spans as far as we're paying out, actuals over projections. Then a series of meetings and calls, hopefully not depositions. If I usually eat lunch at my desk, I don't really go out that much. I'm trying to get a lot done in a day. And mostly meetings, calls, consultations. Occasionally when the mediations are ongoing, my team will step out and give me a call about an issue or a position we want to take, or clear a position they'll take, or an offer. And I'm usually in the office till 8, 9, or 10. Well, we see each other virtually every day, but we have a standing Thursday meeting where we sit down and go over both what's happening on sort of his side of operations, my side of restructuring. The city council, it is probably as frequent though less structured. That with council president, I have an open door policy with anyone at council. They have both my personal number and my state phone, and they are welcome to call me anytime, day or night. Sometimes we'll take calls either in the morning or at night, weekends. And we occasionally have a lunch that not all the council people, just various individual council members. All of the consultants, with the exception of, well, all of the city's consultants, with the exception of Jones Day, were chosen when I was here. I recused myself. I think there was an email back in, whenever we did the pitch January 29th, and I think the next day or two I recused myself from both the Jones Day pitch, but the Jones Day retention, and then when I came to the city, I recused myself from Jones Day's retention as well. So all of the professionals were retained. If you go back and look actually at the November 2012 Memorandum of Detroit Reform, that has specific provisions to retain restructuring professionals who have been working in the city. This is all in depositions already throughout 2012, including Miller Buckfire Investment Bank, Conway McKenzie, restructuring professionals, Ernst & Young, not our auditors, they are our accountants and forecasters, and then Jones Day. Now, the city has since retained on behalf of the retiree committee and a series of professionals for them. In fact, you saw this morning, some of them were asking for a $600 and some odd thousand what we call D&O, Directors and Officers Insurance liability policy, which we've rejected. In bankruptcy, you're entitled to get releases and what's called exculpation of people acting within their official duty in the firm. My contract with the state has a provision for D&O, liability insurance, health insurance, none of which I've obtained. Frankly, I think I'm trying to conduct this in a way that I don't think there should be any exposure, but I haven't done those things. But we also we pay for the city, we pay for the retiree committee and the other side's council. There are 2 layers of oversight. Actually 3. One, and I know this is skeptical to some people, that the firms police themselves. In fact, all of the city's restructuring team has taken a discount over their market rates, their average rates, so at least of 10%, including Conway, Jones Day, and others. So, in addition to that, they have to scrub their bills for any administrative costs. For instance, a firm like Jones Day, as of last year, had already written off about $4 million. And that preparing fee bills, doing other things that you would not bill the city for, so they have to manage that themselves. Then it comes into the city and the chief financial officer's office. But before it comes into the city, the judge has appointed a fee examiner. In that process, there is a 15% holdback against the professionals as for a final fee order that will come at the end. That person's job is also to review all the fees to make sure that they are necessary and appropriate and consistent with what he sees happening in the bankruptcy case. So the bill that actually gets to the city is a full bill, but it's less than 15% holdback that the monitor has in place. That's reviewed by the CFO's office, and the CFO's office approves the bills. Since we now have a CFO, I do not approve the bills. Frankly, I see them, but I don't review them personally in my office. I think, considering the rulings that we've been getting on a basis and what we have to do in bankruptcy, that the performance of the firms is pretty significant and quite good. I lost count at, I think, 18 lawsuits against me in the city. There is an appeal or a motion against anything we do. In fact, Syncora just said yesterday they're going to appeal the swap sale. They're going to contest that. I think I lost count of a number of appeals, but there's one appeal regarding Judge Rose's ruling of the constitutionality issue that's going up. Let's put it this way. I've been doing this for 33 years, and I've done this both in the private sector with the federal government, where I handled the Whitewater investigation for 6 years of the president, both on Independent Counsel Fisk and Independent Counsel Starr when I was at the RTC. I was involved in the Chrysler case, which was with the Indiana pensioners and with the dealer network, which was actually hard fought after. I think it's fair to say that before I got here, I've had a fair amount of experience in terms of restructuring professionals, not just in the nation, but around the world. Chambers certainly felt that way, as well as Martindale Hubbell, people who rate attorneys. I have never seen a more litigious environment than I've seen in this case in 33 years. Anything we do. I mean, there were depositions regarding what I had for lunch, okay? And they were wrong. Okay, I paid for it myself. So anything we do is going to be litigated and looked at, and we have to meet that and we have to fight it. So I see the performance of my team in particular as being spectacular. We're dealing with records and books and actuaries and finances that have been inaccurate for 30 years. I think I would suspect some emergency managers would take issue with the characterization of the new failure. Some in Pontiac and Flint and others, which have come out unsuccessfully and certainly has been chatter. My view of the role of this emergency manager is a receiver. Receivers have been going on since the English Admiralty sent ships out, since the Dutch masters were sending out tulip bulbs. When an enterprise is in trouble, it's put into receivership. DC government, which had Uncle Sam next door, was put into receivership. New York was in a form of receivership. This is a receivership. So my view is the role of the emergency manager, and what I have to do is to staunch the flow, the hemorrhaging of money and debt, relieve the city of some obligations that it entered into years ago. I've never entered into a loan. I've never borrowed from a pension fund. I've never approved borrowing $1.5 billion in 2005 and 2006, which was really lent. The city took in 1.5. Our annual fund budget is $1 billion. We borrowed 150% of what our general fund budget is in 2005 and 2006, and that was supposed to cure pensions then. That was going to be the great cure-all. So I've never seen a city in more difficult straits than where we are, both long-term and short-term. And anyway, look at it. Demographics, we've lost 40% of our population, 50% over the years. Financially, our tax base is going down, our assessments are too high, we're at the maximum millage rate. Borrowings, our ratings are low. We borrowed $1.5 billion, we entered into swaps. Any way you look at it. Well, I think some of it's part of the strategy, but accountability. I mean, I think the second or third day I got here, I entered an order restoring compensation and salary to the then City Council and Mayor Bing. And I also delegated to them, as I have with Mayor Duggan and his team, much of the ordinary course city operations. So I understand a lot of people have those concerns, but I think I've been fairly consistent in trying to recognize those concerns. I got a lot of criticism. I think that was the first or second order I entered back in March, was trying to restore the ordinary course of business for the city government. And people pursued that. Permits were issued, people came to city government, Garbage got picked up. I've been trying to be very observant of those operations, and I did the same thing with Mayor Duggan, perhaps with a little more robustly because we specified with greater specificity. So as far as transparency and all those things, frankly, on a day-to-day operational basis, from the average citizen's perspective, that ordinary course process has been restored. I adopted Mayor Bing's budget. He pushed out a budget. Remember, we're running on a fiscal year, so the budget will go through June of this year. That is the budget that was through the ordinary budget process, whereby the city council adopted a budget. They sent it out to the mayor. The mayor made comments. He sent it to me. I adopted most of his comments in toto. So, frankly, on the operational side, the budget process, in fact, right now we're going through the budget conference process, which we reinstated. Was not done last year, which we reinstated between city and operations. I coordinate closely with the mayor regarding what we think the budget will be. I do have an obligation under 436 to report out a 2-year budget and 10-year projections, which I will do. But the budget process that the city is operating under is a budget that was reviewed and approved by the prior mayor and that city council. No. That is a deal that had been worked on for years before I got here. I did look into it, but it was my understanding that many of the agreements behind that deal had already been negotiated and signed. There was some discussion about additional agreements, but that was sort of 11th and 3/4 hour. So I did not, in my discretion under the statute, think that it was appropriate for me to try to go in, because there are a number of different things that come with that budget. There are bond issuances that go. There are purchasing commitments that have been made. There are agreements in principle that have been made. It's not just the Illich deal, it's a bunch of other things specifically around that area, around Midtown. So I let that go through the ordinary course in the city council. I did not take it up. The city council approved it, and I see no reason for me to second guess the city council and go around it. The city has 4 main income sources: property tax, income tax, state revenue share, and casino revenue, the gaming tax. Those account for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 75 or plus of the city's general fund budget. It has other enterprise zones like DWSD, parking, and some others, but that's generally the general fund source. What we're trying to do principally is to stabilize, that's the mayor's plan, to reduce property taxes, invite people into the city to stabilize income taxes. Casino revenue is the whole swaps deal. We're trying to relieve the liens that Bank of America UBS has on casino revenue that the city gave in 2009. And then on state revenue share, we actually, my understanding is we get about 40% of the revenue share in the state. So it's actually disproportionate. People say Detroit doesn't get its fair share. It actually does. I've seen their approach. I look at the numbers. I don't look at ideology or different people. And frankly, everything I do, there are people who say there are things I do that they take a different position with, and I say that's fine. I'm looking
just
at the
on the
balance
revenue
sheet.
sharing name.
I'm looking at the balance sheet. I hear revenue sharing. I hear about Governor Engler's commitment to increase $200 million. That never showed up. I've heard it all. I'm just looking at it here, and people take different issues. I'm just looking at my numbers.